Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Epilogues and Epiphanies. Today we're talking about Power Ballad with a special guest, Elliott. Ian is a singer-songwriter whose TikTok viral hit Mystic Woman has over 3 million streams on Spotify, and his newest song, Movie Screen, is going to be your absolute summer favorite. We get into some really awesome conversations about the creative process and what it means to make good art, all good things. You don't want to miss it, so here's what's coming up next.
I was going to post it till I hated myself.
Did I write my way out? Is this Hamilton?
You don't get to skip the bad art part to get to the good stuff.
We're talking about Power Ballad today with Ian. And speaking of movies, you have a new song out, Movie Screen. It's so fun. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, Movie Screen is it's just a summer vibes, young and dumb and in love, driving on an open highway kind of a song. I just wanted to write a song that captured the nostalgia of like the best memory you have.
It's so good.
Thank you.
Before we get to the movie, I just kind of want, because I think it's extremely relevant. Tell us a little bit about music, career wise, where you started and kind of how you got to where we're at right now.
Yeah, so I've been doing music my whole life. I come from a very musical family, for generations. Most of my attempts at music were, for all intents and purposes, unsuccessful. I've done various iterations. I've done pop, I've done rock, I've done classical and bluegrass and all these things. And so I've done several different bands and whatnot. And then about a year or two ago, I kind of wanted to just try a solo project. And my goal was to see what kind of music I would write if I didn't care if anyone liked it. So on January 1st of this year, I posted on TikTok a video of a song called Mystic Woman. My goal this year was I was going to tease Mystic Woman on January 1st, and I was just going to post it until I felt humiliated. That was I was going to post it till I hated myself.
Okay.
So posted it on the 1st, and then I posted it every day, and then on the 6th, it went viral,
Nice.
which I was not planning for. And so I posted it again, and it went viral again, and it just kept going viral. And so I started having record labels reach out to me. I ended up signing a deal with a really cool independent label about a month and a half ago.
I think just any creative project, people like to make it sound and I was just so good, it just worked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And yeah, but there's also a lot of grinding before you got to even just being good enough that it just worked and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's really cool.
I can't stress enough that 95% of my musical attempts were grossly unsuccessful.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I would consider myself a wide unsuccess.
Wide unsuccess.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But it just takes one. On the topic of songwriting and this movie that we're here to talk about, which is about songwriting and also not about songwriting and about a lot of things. First impressions. What did you think coming out of that movie?
I felt a lot more feelings during that movie than I thought I was going to feel. I thought it was just going to be sort of like a campy comedy. But I'm sort of in the middle right now of the most successful at music I've ever been. But also I'm still a nobody at the moment. And so watching this movie where essentially the premise of the movie is Nick Jonas is this famous kind of pop star, and Paul Rudd is this wedding band dad who dreamed of rock success and never got it, but still writes songs. And they end up meeting together, and they have Paul Rudd shares one of his old songs, and Nick Jonas ends up taking it and using it without his permission, and it becomes very successful. So it was interesting for me to watch because there was a lot of conversations Nick has with his manager about a crazed fan or someone won't stop messaging him or we need to do this, we need to do that. And I was like, oh yeah, I've gotten a little taste of that with my manager. We have talks like that. But on the other hand, you have this guy, Paul Rudd's character, who's just this very normal guy.
Yeah.
And even though he's not famous, he is a great songwriter, and
Yeah,
he's just
yeah.
like desperate to just taste a little bit of success and kind of get his flowers. And
Yeah.
I think every musician knows how that works. And most musicians' two biggest fears are you get famous accidentally stealing someone else's song and not realizing it, or someone gets famous off of your song
Yeah.
and you don't get credit for it.
It's about stealing a song, but it's also like kind of about like I think to me the scene that really stood out the most was where they were like fighting at the end, um, which was really interesting. But like I thought it was really well done. I think what I wished would have happened was that there would have been more Nick and Paul on screen together, because I feel like
Sure.
they were really like I didn't want it to be a buddy comedy, you know, because that's not the story. But like I kind of wish it was like they were like collaborating and like then I don't know. I just felt like they were really cool together on screen, and we only got like a taste of it, and then they kind of went away. But
Yeah.
yeah,
There's a scene in the very beginning that kind of sets up the whole movie where Paul Rudd and Nick Jonas are in his like hotel room and they're writing, and they did a good job of capturing a lot of the elements of what it's like to write with somebody else, because
mm-hmm.
it's kind of awkward and it's kind of messy,
Yeah,
and a lot of times figuring out like how much credit does somebody get, like how much
yeah,
did you contribute, is
right,
very like nebulous
yeah,
and kind of just vague.
yeah,
um and uh and they did a really good job of like that. But to your point, the end of the movie, they have this conversation where you find out that the song that Nick Jonas steals is deeply personal to Paul Rudd in a way that Nick could never understand, because it's about fatherhood,
hmm
and Nick's character is not a father. And I thought they did a great job of tapping into there's an intangible factor about authentic songwriting, versus like not produced, like manufactured pop
yeah,
songs, right?
yeah,
You can tell, now we'd say like, oh, that's an AI pop song, because you can
hmm
tell that it's just kind of soulless and doesn't come from real
right,
experience.
yeah,
Versus when you listen to like a song like Orange Juice by Noah Kahn, and he's talking about sort of this alcoholic and this family, and this person, his family, you can tell right away like this is a real story.
yeah,
um
yeah, for sure. Yeah,
and
I
there's
know
something
that.
just more connecting about it.
I think what you're talking about like feels like, yeah, there's a process to like we're in the music industry, we have to make the music. Whether or not we have this like overwhelming current of inspiration that hits, and like you can definitely feel the difference between those songs, though. I think to your
Yeah,
point, like it's really different.
they still got to make
Yeah,
money, and they still got to do what
yeah,
they're good at and whatnot.
yeah.
And so
No, that's
uh
really that creative process, like you said, is really messy, and it's kind of like because it is so deeply personal, but also you like I want this thing to be good, like so I want to know what it is, but that hurts because that was like really important, or that was like really meaningful, or I really sat with that a long time. But like, you know, trying to I think the real miracle of this whole movie is that as high and as drunk as they were, that Nick Jonas remembered that song. Because like they were drinking for a while, like, and like after a wedding where they had been drinking for a while, like, and so I think the fact that he remembered the song as well as he did might be the real miracle of the whole thing, because that was
yeah,
crazy.
well, you'd be surprised, things get tucked away in your head.
Different part of the brain just like free
Yeah,
from it all. Yeah.
and I think a lot of times, when people do rip off somebody else's song, I think a lot of times it genuinely is a mistake,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I can tell you as a songwriter, the sensation of hearing a great song that you love,
hmm
and the sensation of hearing a new catchy hook, they have the same feeling. There's a familiarity. Like when you write a catchy part, it feels like you've heard it before,
Feels like
right?
you know where it's going already.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so it can become impossible to differentiate.
There can be a lot of people that get really dogmatic about like the right way to creative, and like you know there's and some of it I think there's like this third element that we just don't ever know what's gonna like there's just some like I don't know, magic or something that just like happens when the right thing hits the right moment, and all those kinds of things that you just really can't totally predict, which is kind of what makes it awesome. and really fun because you just never know what's going to click one over the other. And I think we learn something when we find what clicks, you know?
Yeah, and I think there's just so many more factors to what makes good art than people think.
Hmm.
It's not just like a catchy hook or nice lyrics or a good voice. Like it's got to be the right time and it's got to be given to the right audience. And you know, like I was listening to an interview of Joe Jonas talking about Cake by the Ocean, and he was saying that the producers who had that little lick down 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 down, right, that lick had been on this guy's phone for like 10 years,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And it's a great song, but had he given it to somebody, had Cake by the Ocean been written 10 years earlier, it might not have ever
But
gotten
yeah, for
heard,
sure.
right?
For sure.
There's kind of this, the stars got to align.
Yeah,
Just because a
totally.
song is good doesn't mean it'll get famous.
No, yeah, and I mean, and especially in like the age of social media too, like there's still that other factor of somebody did a video one time where they said being a creative in like 2025 or 2026 is like being in the orchestra and you love playing your instrument. You love it. So like let's say podcasting for me is the trumpet. Let's say that.
Mm.
And they say, "Okay, you can play the trumpet, but you're going to have to learn also how to play the trumpet through the clarinet." And you're like, "But I don't play the clarinet and I don't like the clarinet. I like to play the trumpet." Yeah, yeah, but if you ever want to if you want to keep playing the trumpet and you want to ever play the trumpet again, you have to learn how to play your trumpet through the clarinet. And the clarinet is
Yeah.
social media. I think that's the struggle of these two characters is like one is like the machine and one is like, the soul of it. And that song couldn't, Nick Jonas. First of all, I'm going to pause here because I need to talk about that scene because that scene felt very meta for Nick Jonas to me as a Jonas Brothers fan. He's like screaming, "I am real," like, and all this kind of like, and he's like his eyes are just like, I mean, he is meaning
Yeah.
it, and it's like, oh, this is very like, I think he's processing something while he's working, like while he's acting out this scene, which would make sense. But like,
Yeah.
it was crazy.
Did you watch the Jonas Brothers Christmas movie?
Well, hell yeah.
When Nick he has his really good scene where he has this sort of sing off with his like Broadway stage
Uh-huh.
partner, and and in that same scene he's sort of like singing to like validate his that he deserved to be on Broadway. And
Yeah.
as I was watching Power Ballad, I was like, I wonder if Nick Jonas just enjoys like the self-deprecation of and like meta processing of his own celebrity.
think he I think he's finally processing stuff is kind of my opinion of it because I've been a fan of theirs since high school. They were one of the few things I was allowed to listen to.
Sure.
Those good old purity rings. But anyways, so like that was anyways, like his like comments about like he's not the oldest, but he's got very much like these oldest brother traits kind of in their dynamic of being the one that has to like kind of hold it together, have all the answers for everybody and those kinds of
Right.
things for like he kind of talks about that in that movie. And I feel like, he talks a little bit about the pressure of it all in this movie too. And that felt a little bit meta as well. Like you don't know the pressure to succeed. Like, and I would imagine like, you drop a new album and you're Nick Jonas, like people expect it to hit a certain way, like not even just like be successful but like successful in a certain way, like, and like I think that would have to be really tricky. What I hope some of this like meta processing out loud leads to is more songs like Gut Punch. I don't know if you've
Yeah,
heard that one
I have.
because that was like a teaser to me. Like I really was hoping like his whole album was going to be a little more like that, and then there was like maybe two songs like that on the whole thing, and the rest of it was kind of back to Nick Land. But
Sure.
yeah, but
Yeah, there's a part in the movie at the very beginning where he's talking about how hard it is to like write songs as like when your audience is teenage girls because you have to like make the lyrics safe enough to let their parents
oh
bring them
yeah,
to the concert, but good
yeah,
enough to that their parents still want to bring them to the concert.
yeah, yeah, for
And
sure.
and I just uh, I could just feel how difficult it probably has been for someone like him to transition into like adulthood writing. And like with musicians, there's this catch-22 of like, especially like famous musicians, where people, when your next project comes out, people are coming because they want to hear the thing that they already like about you.
Yep.
But sometimes if you do too much of that,
Mm-hmm.
it's like they'll say, well, this sounds just like the old album. But sometimes they're like, oh yeah, it's the old album.
Yeah.
And you never know which one it's gonna be. Like I
Yeah.
felt that way about Coldplay before, where
Yeah.
like when Coldplay put out Viva La Vida, I think it sounded completely different than all their other albums, and it sort of split the fan base.
Yeah.
Arguably, it's one of their most famous records, but like there were some people who felt like this is not Coldplay. This is
Right.
not who we want to hear. But then other people who were like, thank God, we were getting
Right. Yeah.
tired
Yeah.
of, X and Y sounded, I was getting lost in the sauce because it sounded like everything else.
Yeah. Yeah. There is that. I think that what you're kind of touching on a little bit too is the role that fame and the audience play in the creative process, and like what gets to get made or what gets to get heard maybe, um is very interesting, because that was kind of like, um I think, yes, it influences like the output and like the final product that people are deciding gets to be what's, released. But I also think there's like a layer of living a life like that, and you maybe have a taste of this, like with more eyes on you, like, um and maybe this is not true for you yet, but like maybe in some ways, like I feel like you mentioned Paul Rudd's character saying like, fatherhood and like those experiences, like, or what made him make that song. I do feel like there is a difficulty when someone's been famous and they're super famous for like maybe too long. It can be like they almost have to either go back to the life, like writing about the life they had before, which starts to get harder to do, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And then like because I do feel like good art comes from lived experience, and there's like a little bit less of that texture to their lived experience because it's kind of filed off for them, as a result of fame and all that. But
Yeah, you start to kind of lose touch is what the accusation that gets thrown against you. I saw a really interesting, I think it was a TED talk about songwriting one time, and the guy was talking about this sort of paradoxical philosophy where the more specific uh, the lyrics of a song are, the more generally received it will be. And he was explaining, if you write a song that's just sort of like generically about falling in love, uh, the audience is kind of like, okay, yeah, like we've heard this before.
yeah.
But if you write a song about, uh, you know, you and your partner break up, and you move out, and then 6 months later, one of their letters of mail accidentally gets sent to your place, and you see their name again, and like what that feels like, that's an experience that like you're like, oh yeah, I know, I get that.
Yeah.
And it becomes a lot more easy to like grab.
Yeah.
And so I think the movie does a good job of kind of showing the importance of like lived experience in
Yeah.
songwriting.
For sure. The more you color in the details, the more it like resonates deeply, and you can like taste it, touch it, smell it, feel it, kind of thing. And then like, which is why I think, lover or hater, I think Taylor Swift, like her stuff is so resonant a lot of times, like when she's writing from that place of like, she's not just saying you made me mad, like she's saying like you betrayed me and it felt like I lost a limb or something. You know what I mean? Like I don't even know. Like,
Sure.
but like there's like that specificity of that I feel like makes it easier to, because it's like connecting that core piece again, like, and you can like relate to that core because she's like colored that in so well that you can find that a little easier, whereas it's like it kind of just washes over you, like you were saying, like otherwise you're like, oh, love, okay, whatever, like you didn't say anything that piqued my interest. But
Yeah,
yeah.
it becomes too generic.
Yeah.
And again, I think finding the sweet spot of like in between hyper specificity and genericism is important. In fact, in the movie, in the very beginning, there's a part where Paul Rudd is singing one of his songs to Nick Jonas, and he references this like obscure neighborhood outside of Dublin, which was like a cool idea. And then Nick says to him, like, you should just change it to Dublin. Like people aren't going to know what this is, and Dublin is still a cool thing to reference, right? And that's a really good example of like getting the Goldilocks zone of like we're referencing people's home, but it's not so specific that you don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Yeah, because I'm like, if it was like the way he said it before, I was like, is that a town name? Like it's so obscure, like I didn't know that. Versus like Dublin is still specific, like but I at least know Dublin is a city and a place. Like that
Hmm.
kind of like not confusing people out of like being able to, because you don't want to like take people out of it. I think that's a piece of it too, and like um I think another thing though, like for me when I think about all this is like if and maybe it's a little bit back into that like cycle we were talking about earlier of like good movies make good humans who make good stories who make good movies kind of thing. Like, you know, um, do you feel like the same is true for like most? I guess I've narrowed that down very specifically to stories and movies, but like, do you feel like that's true of really good art too?
Yeah, I mean, I think all art is stories, um, and I think for example, with music, uh, there is there is music that has gotten me through really difficult times, and then when I come out of those times, I feel inspired to make music, and then that music either sounds like the music that inspired me, or that music goes on to inspire somebody else,
Yeah,
and like and round we go.
yeah,
Um, and so, in fact, in my single movie screen, I reference Kendrick Lamar, um, and I reference an album that is not most Kendrick Lamar fans would not consider this album like their favorite album. But it was an important album to me because it came out during a really difficult time
yeah,
for me.
yeah,
And Movie Screen is not even a song about going through a difficult time, but like I wanted to like kind of tip my cap
yeah.
to the art that like got me to make art, you know.
Yeah, the art that kind of got you to the sunshine spot you could write about and sing about. Like, I think that's really cool. I like that you're kind of like acknowledging in a really subtle way that like light, like the darkness in the middle of the light, or the light because of some of the dark. I think that's super cool.
I think an indicator of great art is how much it inspires recreation of more art.
That's
Um,
really cool.
I think art that's not gonna go anywhere or mean anything, uh, it will be the last of its generation,
Sure.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I guess to ask that question maybe more specifically, like what do you hope in a maybe a more specific tone that your art goes on to do?
um, I I think all lasting art is about love, pain, and politics. And I generally cover at least one of those topics in all my songs. Um, and I would be thrilled if my music got heard. It's funny when Mystic Woman came out, I started having all these psychics DM me, and they were
Gosh.
they were messaging me about like they did a tarot card reading for me, or they had a vision for me, or they saw this and this, and they started coming in like crazy. But there was one who messaged me, and I don't know exactly what it was, but something about her message just felt a little more unique and specific to me. And so I ended up reading the whole thing, and she talked about how like as my music got successful, it I would know it was successful because it would inspire other people who hadn't believed in themselves to try to start making their art finally.
That's super
Um,
cool.
and yeah, and whether or not that happens, I have no idea. But I would be very honored. I have had people message me saying, "Hey, I heard Mystic Woman, and it made me finally sit down and finish the book I was writing."
Yeah.
Or I finally decided to pick up my guitar that I've been too depressed to play for 2 years, and start writing music again. And that's like what more can you ask for, right? That's
Yeah.
like the highest honor.
No, that's super cool. It definitely I think that art, like, kind of sending other people into motion of some kind, whether it's, like, moving forward with something in their life or creation of their own, I think that's really like, it just kind of inspires that movement and, like, when you can sense that it's, like, really coming from an authentic place, I feel like that is really true. No,
Yeah.
that's super cool. That's super cool. Is there anything else that we haven't like gone into about the movie or about any of this kind of industry process or um that kind of thing that you wanted that was specific that you wanted to talk through?
But some of the more like philosophical stuff, uh, I think every musician worries that they are going to become Paul Rudd's character, where
Mm.
like it's embarrassing to admit that like the dream never really dies. And so you look for ways to sort of scratch the itch, but I think we all worry like, are we going to become like the 50-year-old dad who plays in a wedding band and still wears tight jeans? Um, but what I found was that every time I have tried to like hang up the hat on music,
Mhm.
the itch to make it never goes away. It just gets itchier.
Yeah.
And eventually the need to make music isn't going to change. And so you just have to change the reason why you make
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I think
And so
I think
yeah, go
that's
ahead.
interesting true too. You said you kind of like that you feel like it's embarrassing. And I do feel like Paul Rudd's character does start to feel that way a little bit in the middle of the movie. And then like I also feel like at the end when he kind of realizes like he got a different dream in a little bit of a way, like, like it's not that like I never made it there, so it's almost like I didn't get this, so I didn't have anything. Like, is kind of the feeling of it versus like he kind of realizes, "Oh, I've already won." And I feel like there's something interesting that they do there too is like when he stops like digging his heels in and fighting and kind of ignoring the life that he does have, um then it all works out. Like, the universe kind of has his back in a way. And like, it doesn't always happen that explicitly, but I do feel like in a way that when you kind of learn to see what's real and what the real priorities are, that it does kind of have your back in those ways. Like good
Yeah.
things come back around in ways you maybe don't expect. And I think that it was a really cool way they resolved him getting visual justice for those of us watching the movie to see that like, oh, he didn't just get screwed, but like but it wasn't because he really like barreled down and like made it happen himself necessarily.
Yeah, I think there's an overarching message in the movie of uh like letting go and self-acceptance through the
Mhm.
medium of artistry. Uh, Before I put out Mystic Woman, last year I read these two books that are pretty famous books. I just hadn't gotten around to reading them. And one was called The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F.
Oh yeah. I've
And
read part of that book too.
yeah, and the other one was called Wabi Sabi for Artists.
Okay.
And wabi sabi is a Japanese concept
Mhm.
of like embracing the imperfections as
Mhm.
something more beautifying instead of less beautifying.
Mhm.
And so when I was making my solo project and Mystic Woman even specifically, two things I really had to like keep reminding myself was like it doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to be authentic. And also we are going to make this not for the results. We're going to make
Mhm.
this just as
Mhm.
an expression of my own artistry.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that was the first time I had ever made songs like that. All prior to
Yeah.
that, I had done pop, where like the whole goal is to get people to
Right.
hear it,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
And so similar to Paul Rudd's character's journey, my own music was sort of like for the first time I was making something just because I liked it and
Yeah.
it made me feel good and it was part of who I was. And
Yeah.
as cliche as it is, that was when everything took off for
Yeah.
me.
No, I think there is really something to that as well. I was like imposter syndrome hard when I started this show of like I want to do this. I feel like I need to do this. I'm going to do this, but like very much like worrying about every little thing that anyone will think about what I'm saying. So it was like I was like kind of apologizing for having an opinion, but I had one,
Yeah.
and then like I think just like in the last like year or so, have finally felt like, you know, to your point, like I think I've finally realized that, you know, who listens or who doesn't, or who thinks what about this show and who doesn't, like it's brought a lot to my life personally, like just through the process of like who I've reconnected with or who I've met through like having a reason to talk to them about something on this show. Like I literally would not have the job I have right now. So
That's
like
amazing.
just like yeah, I'm like, did I write my way out? Is this Hamilton? Like what's going on? Knowing that it's about the process.
Yeah, there's a scene in the movie where Paul Rudd is trying to like find an old demo
Mm-hmm.
of the song that he thinks got stolen, and he's just scrolling through like tens of thousands of demos of him, of just little bits and pieces of songs. And I think people forget that it takes a lot of bad art to
Mm-hmm.
make good art.
Yeah,
and
100%.
you have to really just try stuff and like be brave, and most of it won't work. You don't get to skip like
No,
the bad art part and
no.
to get to the good stuff.
Yeah, I think if there's one thing that like people could take away maybe from the end of this conversation, it's that like good art takes work, and it's like worth going through you have to be bad at the thing before you can be good at the thing, and
Mhm.
it's worth being bad at it and being uncomfortable. When I released the first episode of this podcast, which I recorded on a like $10 Target gamer mic in my closet, like
Yeah.
I put it out, and like 10 seconds later I was like, I could just delete it. Like I could just take it, like I could take it back. And then I was like, no, like if you're gonna do this, you're gonna do this. And I even have like on my story archives, it pops up every year, like the story I posted of like resisting the urge to like take it all back and pretend I didn't do it, and like letting my bad pancake give other people permission to make their first bad pancakes. And like there's so many people that could be amazing at something, but they're nothing at it because they don't want to pick it up because they're
They
worried
don't
about
even
it.
try.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's that whole like
To your point, also, I have found that in the art making process, regardless of how good or bad the product is, the emotional journey that I go through during the making it is the same. I always
yeah.
start with an idea that I'm super excited about. I go to do it and I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can. And then eventually it starts to form and I get re-excited about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I look at it too much and I'm like,
Yeah.
actually, this is the worst idea I've ever had.
Yeah. Basically it's garbage.
And
Yeah.
then I just see it through and I'm like, whatever. And then I become indifferent. And then eventually I accept it. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
it's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just part of being a human being. I think when Charles Dickens opens with like, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times.
Fair enough.
He's just describing the human condition.
Yeah.
That's just a human experience.
Yeah.
That was Dickens, right? Who said that?
I think you're right. I don't know.
Let
I'll
me
be
fact
honest.
check.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just say stuff that's not true at all. Best of times, worst of times.
Fair enough.
Hold on. Yeah, Dickens. It was.
I was gonna say the good news is this is a movie podcast. We watch movies. We don't read. We don't read all that much. But
we're not a literate crew.
Yeah, no, that's yeah. No, this was super fun. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me about this movie. Like this was super cool.
Thank you for having me. This has been awesome.